Hello and welcome back, and today I wanted to revisit a subject that I touched on here on YouTube almost coming up on 2 years ago realistically, and so much has changed. Today I want to talk about HD station or hybrid desk station depending on what you want to talk about, and ultimately I want to show you guys exactly what it can do. When I last did this video, HD station was nowhere near the beast it has become today, and the number of myriad of applications, both official, unofficial, first and third party, is genuinely breathtaking. And with a newer generation of QNAPs, such as the one we're using today, the 251D, arriving with HDMI 2.0A, in other words, up to 4K 60 frames per second, I did think it was worth revisiting hybrid desk station today. Now, today I'm going to be using the web access here. What that means is it's a localized IP, so using a not so much web so much as network, and accessing a visual interface of the HDMI port. It just makes things easier to screen record rather than using a capture card to run through the middle, and at the moment I'm recording on a desktop PC with OBS. But it's worth highlighting that when you use HD station, chances are you're going to be using an HDMI monitor, a TV, something like that, as well as in terms of user interface and control, you'll either be using a keyboard and mouse, a Bluetooth remote control with a dongle, an infrared remote control like the Q remotes that QNAP have got released, and the mobile Q remote application for iOS and Android. Any one of those will do, as well as game controllers and more user interfaces. So you'll be using HDMI, but today I'm going to be using the web interface to go through these. At the moment we're looking at the web interface of my QNAP NAS, and before we make our way over to HD station, I think it's worth highlighting one of the best ways in which we populate HD station with our apps. So on the official App Center of QNAP's QTS 4.4.1 platform at the time of recording, there is an entire dedicated tab here for hybrid desk station, and this allows you to install applications currently supplied by QNAP that are supported by an HDMI port. This doesn't mean that what you're accessing is exactly the same thing as this web interface, because HD station is a complete separate entity. It runs parallel to your QNAP NAS and the usual graphical user interface and apps, with HD station acting as a completely separate access point that gives you local access to your data. It's supported by web connectivity, and some elements of it may use the internet to get graphical resources and updates, but everything you see is localized. And these are the applications that arrive by default, and you can choose to install some or all of them. There's some key players in there from QNAP themselves, such as File Station, Photo Station, Music Station, Video Station, and of course the surveillance application QVR Pro, which allows you to mount a local surveillance setup with QVR Pro to be accessed with a keyboard and mouse. But there are lots of third-party apps too, some of which you get from the QNAP App Center and others from another source that I'll talk about later on. So if you want to utilize the HDMI local access of your NAS with Skype, what that means is you can then install Skype, connect to it, and then chat to people anywhere in the world over Skype on their Skype devices, and you just use your QNAP NAS. You can even connect a microphone, a web camera, and more, and keyboard and mouse of course, in order to communicate with people from the comfort of your own living room. That extends to lots of other communication tools that I'll talk about later on. You can connect a keyboard and mouse and create a standalone word pressing area, and remember that all of the applications we're talking about today can be used at the same time. It's not one or another. You can use them concurrently, simultaneously, however you see fit. You can even access online libraries of music and streaming services such as Spotify and a bunch of other third-party ones that I'm going to show you how to install in a bit. But with these applications here, it's worth highlighting with HD station that if you head down to QNAP Club, which is a separate website, there are more applications to be had. Chances are, however, that if you're using your QNAP for the first time, this button isn't here. And in order to add that, make your way to the top right up here, click Settings, click App Repository, click there, and this URL that we see here on screen needs to be added to your QNAP NAS, because this is the unofficial App Store. make a note of that URL, and on your screen, because this won't be here, click add, and then add that URL here, and here type QNAP Club. Once you've added that, and again you will add it, you won't click cancel like I do, on your screen that new button will appear, and from here give it 30 to 40 seconds to refresh the list, and from there, because that will only happen the first time, you will be given the list of all of the unofficial QNAP applications in the Unofficial App Center. Now, there are loads. There are support with third-party platforms of media, lots of third-party applications for streaming, collaboration tools, and more. But the one that we want to focus on today, because there is hundreds and hundreds of really cool custom homemade applications here, and even applications that existed in previous versions of the QNAP NAS platform, but not now, that have been modded by people, such as Kodi, the latest version, Kodi Matrix, and more. On the left-hand side of the screen, go to HD Station. This refines this list to all the applications that feature HD Station support. In other words, that can be displayed by the HD Station app. Now, some of these, again, are first class. Whether you want to use OBS Studio, which indeed is the software I'm using to record today, install it on your QNAP NAS so you can screen record anything on your QNAP is an option. On top of that, you can install Netflix streaming services, you can install Amazon Music, Amazon Video, and more. There's lots of virtualization applications, and as for gaming apps, there are loads of free games included that can be played directly like a PC gamer with your TV and a keyboard and a mouse. And some of these games are retro classics, others are far, far more detailed with real 3D engine graphics. On top of that, you have got emulator platforms that allow you to play everything from PlayStation ROMs to arcade ROMs to your good old classic Mega Drive and SNES. There are loads of options. I've just seen a new one here that I've never seen before. This is something to do with the word wine, and it's some sort of software emulator or not, who knows. But as I'm saying, there are lots of tools here. There's even photo and video editing tools that can be utilized on your QNAP NAS with just a keyboard, a mouse, and a monitor. And all the while, your NAS is still working as a NAS for all of your connected users, be they enjoying media, backing up, doing work, viewing emails, or more. The options are huge. There's some real cool ones that I really recommend you guys go through, but just remember, these are unofficial apps. So what that means in real terms is there is an element of risk to anything where you're dealing with outside of the manufacturer support. So always be aware and double check things that you're going to install before it's too late. Now, moving forward from this, let's look at HD Station itself. Once you connect a keyboard and a mouse for the first time, you will be presented with a login screen. Now, you can set it up that you don't have to log in every time if you so choose, but I'm glad that it's going to invite you to log into the HD Station with your own login credentials. If you've got multiple users, this can make all the difference. As mentioned at the bottom, you can restart HD Station like a quick reset by holding the one-touch copy button. That means just like repowering any multimedia device, it can be done very easily without having to power the entire NAS up again. All it does is reboot HD Station while the NAS remains active. Nice little extra bit there. So if I log into my HD Station NAS here, nice and simple, I'm going to log in there and maybe spell my password correctly. Now we're logging in and making our way into HD Station on our QNAP NAS. Now again, we are using a web interface here, not HDMI out, so I apologise if there's a little bit of flicker there or the frames per second drops a little bit. You will see a far more fluid and crisp user interface when using HDMI direct output. Now, all the apps that you install will appear here on the screen. You can flick between them and action one or more as needed. At the top of the screen here, we've got lots of options ranging from our own individual IP, which you may notice is exactly the same as the web IP here. If we go into the options menu here, we can look at some settings where we can change how the device works. And if we go to the app area, we can select an average app. Say if we want to install, if we click on the Plex application, maybe I'll stop tapping that button there in error. And then from there, we can go into the Plex Theatre app, or the Plex Media app, and from here, if there's an update, it will let you know if there's an update available. You can disable the app long term or set as auto run. And what that means is that every time you boot up the NAS, it will boot directly into this app. You can still press back and home to get back to the main menu, but it's nice to have this option. You can also set it up that only an admin can use this app if you so choose, which is quite handy if it's a surveillance application or a virtual machine platform that you only want registered users to be able to access. The display can be changed in a number of ways. With the wallpaper can feature any image that you want that's based on the NAS, and you can change the resolution as needed. If you are connected via a 4K monitor, I'm pleased to say that the 251D supports 4K at 60 frames per second, so you can set this to be lovely and high. And although most people only use 4K monitors for watching 4K 60 frames per second media at close to zero latency, a lot of you will use a QNAP NAS for surveillance. And once you've got lots of cameras on screen, a 4K monitor manages to give you a lot more simultaneous camera feeds at once at a higher resolution. So do bear that in mind. In case you connect and you're not seeing 4K immediately, you may have to alter manually. If you go to the preferences, you can change a number of different parts about the device, and you can change the way you can see information, how it's presented, if you want to utilize different outputs, because some NASs have multiple HDMI, and you can add remote controls manually. So you can add remote controls for some of them to initiate a brand new remote control that you may own. If you've purchased a brand new remote control from QNAP, from their stores, you can use the new remote control and register it here on that screen. And that's about it for the settings menu. It's quite a simple application, but it gives you quite a lot. So with all of these different tools, I have done videos on some of these apps already. Some of the applications are designed to be window in window, such as the Skype application, which is a floating app that can then hover on top of every other application, meaning that you can utilize your Skype convos while doing other things, and the Skype window can be moved around and will continue to exist on top of any other window you use. You can log in and do anything you would normally do with a client desktop version of Skype. If we go to Plex Media Player, we can then set up and access a Plex Media server, something that via HDMI is incredibly desirable. And the ability for us to access our multimedia as a Plex Media server library via HDMI, and therefore accessing the incredible fast access of 4K locally compared with the internet or the network, cannot be understated. And on top of that, there are lots of ways in which you can interact with your Plex albums and online access platforms. So if we log out here and exit that application, we can carry on back at the original screen. QVR client here, if we had QVR Pro installed, will allow us to access the QVR Pro series of camera feeds. And if we'd installed QVR Pro on this NAS, we would be able to access a series of different systems. Unfortunately, QVR Pro is not installed on this NAS, so we won't be able to see a QVR Pro user interface. Right now, it's inviting us to log in, but again, we have no cameras set up, so we won't be able to add cameras locally on this camera feed. Again, we can go to Spotify and add our Spotify albums, and therefore play our Spotify music directly on a local user interface. And remember that the remote controls, be they the mobile application or the physical remote control, can still be gone back, press home, flick between windows, just like you would expect. And again, I cannot recommend a number of these apps enough. Now, Kodi, of course, a popular one that's kind of fallen foul of a few people who have used it for illegal purposes to stream content they shouldn't have, is something that isn't available officially on the store, and you will have to install the unofficial QNAP App Center in order to take advantage of the Kodi application. If we go back to this user interface of this screen, we can use LibreOffice, which is an alternative to Microsoft Office, as a Word documentation, spreadsheet viewing, and more. HD Music Station, HD Photo Station, and HD Video Station give us localized access to all of our media files, and the QTS button is a portal directly to the user interface of our NAS, which means that if we're accessing our NAS via HDMI, we can now also access it, the internals of the NAS, rather than using a laptop like I'm using today. there are so many applications ready and available for users of the QNAP HDMI platform. We can find out more information and browse the internet and have web browsers directly here. If we go back to the web user interface here, we can look at a number of these applications just to see how easy they are added. If we look at these apps here and maybe go for a gaming based one, such as that one for Lemmings that we mentioned earlier, we can just click install. QNAP do go to great lengths to highlight that an unofficial application is installed at your own risk, and you should keep aware of that. But for now, I'm going to click agree, and I'm going to say that I take the risks. And then in the background, it's going to start installing this Lemmings application. It's going to install it, and it's not there now. And in the background, while we look at some options, it's now going to install this new app. If we carry on, we can look through some of these other applications. We can install the Netflix application as well. We're going to click yes, and maybe even the Amazon Music application too. As we can see, some applications require a newer version of HD Station or even an older version of HD Station, hence why the unofficial application platform can sometimes be a little bit frustrating for those of us that want to make sure we're using the latest version of our apps. As we see, Hybrid Desk Station at the moment is the latest version right now, but these applications may not run on the latest version of HD Station. So there will always be alternatives, and homebrew applications will always be playing a little bit of catch up. But HD Stations for me still provides probably some of the best local access to your data in the most bespoke way that I've seen in a very long time. It is fluid, it's easy, and if you've got a QNAP NAS with an HDMI port, congratulations, you've got HD Station and all those applications readily included. If you've got any questions about other things you can do with an HDMI enabled NAS, do let me know. I know this video has been a bit light in terms of photos and video that we've looked at, and if we look at some of these applications going straight into them, because we're using a NAS that doesn't have a vast amount of photo or image media inside, we are going to see less than we would hope. I'm being told that there are always innovations happening right now in terms of content from QNAP on the HD Station platform, with more applications arriving with support of HDMI output all of the time. We've got Photo Station there, but unfortunately, because we don't have the client application readily installed, we aren't going to be able to see the content of those apps. You need to make sure you've got the apps ready here so that you can access them here. And that is what makes all of the difference. But I'm going to wrap things up now. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. There's lots more to learn about QNAP NAS, and I will be doing a very similar overview to this on the ASUSTOR NAS platform, another NAS brand that arrives with HDMI and their own web portal interface. But without further ado, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, click like. It helps me know what content people like to see, and then I can expand on these subjects accordingly. If you want to click subscribe, then you'll learn more about new innovations in the world of network attached storage as they become available. And if you want to stay abreast of what's going on right now, do go to NASCompares below to learn more about NAS in general in 2020. Apart from that, I will see you guys next time.